The Silence of Sulphur. Chapter 1. A Place of Solitude. In the remote outskirts of Sulphur, Oklahoma, where the land stretched out endlessly, a small, secluded house stood alone, almost swallowed by the overgrown foliage. It was an old structure, its paint peeling and its windows darkened by years of neglect, yet it had a sinister allure that drew the attention of those who knew its dreadful reputation. This was the home of Dr. Victor Stryker, a former medic from the war in Afghanistan, whose life had spiraled into darkness long after the battles had ended. Victor had chosen this place for its isolation, the silence that wrapped around it like a shroud. The nearest neighbor was miles away, the closest town too small to notice the occasional flicker of light or the distant sound of a car door closing. He had built his house with a dry cellar, a perfect place to keep his gruesome secrets. The house was his sanctuary, a place where he could indulge his darkest fantasies without fear of interruption. Online, Victor was a different man. He presented himself as a charming, charismatic individual, using dating apps and chat sites to lure unsuspecting women to his home. Under the guise of offering them a good time, he promised them adventure and excitement, a night of pleasure and escape. His victims were drawn to him by his smooth words and alluring promises, never suspecting the true horror that awaited them. Chapter 2. The Lure. It was on Bumble that he first found her, a young woman named Emily. Her profile was filled with pictures of her smiling, her eyes bright with the carefree joy of youth. She had written in her bio about her love for hiking and her dream of traveling the world. Victor was captivated by her innocence, her beauty, and the life that seemed so full and vibrant. He had sent her a message, his words carefully crafted to draw her in. He spoke of his love for the outdoors, of the beauty of the remote countryside near his home. He promised her a night of peace and tranquility, a chance to escape the hustle and bustle of city life. Emily, charmed and intrigued, agreed to meet him, her heart racing with excitement and curiosity. As she drove through the winding roads to his home, the air growing colder and the night darker, Emily felt a growing sense of unease. The house, with its dilapidated exterior and eerie silence, seemed to loom over her, a dark presence that sent shivers down her spine. But she pushed her fear aside, her desire for adventure and the thrill of the unknown overpowering her caution. When she arrived, Victor greeted her with a warm smile, his eyes reflecting the darkness that lay hidden beneath his facade. He welcomed her into his home, offering her a drink and a tour of the house. Emily, trusting and unsuspecting, followed him, her senses dulled by the warmth of his hospitality and the allure of the unknown. Chapter 3. The Nightmare Begins. As the night wore on, Victor's true intentions began to reveal themselves. He led Emily to the cellar, a place that seemed to pulse with a cold, unnatural energy. The walls were lined with strange instruments and tools, their purpose hidden in the shadows. Emily's heart pounded in her chest as she felt a growing sense of dread, her instincts screaming at her to run. Victor, his eyes gleaming with a sick, twisted satisfaction, offered her a drink laced with a powerful sedative. As she drank, her vision blurred, her body growing heavy and unresponsive. Victor watched with cold detachment as she slumped to the floor, her cries for help muffled by the drug's powerful grip. When Emily awoke, she was in a dark, cold room, her body bound by heavy chains. The pain in her head was sharp and relentless, her thoughts clouded by the drug and the terror that gripped her heart. She struggled against her restraints, her screams echoing in the silence, but no one came to her aid. Victor entered the room, his face a mask of twisted glee, his eyes fixed on her with a hunger that sent shivers down her spine. "Welcome, Emily," he said, his voice cold and clinical. "I hope you're ready for the adventure of a lifetime." Chapter 4. The Torment. Victor's methods were brutal and relentless. He began by cutting small pieces from Emily's body, each slice a new source of pain and despair. He did not use anesthetics, the pain sharp and unrelenting, the screams of his victim filling the room with a haunting echo. He cooked the pieces he removed, serving them to Emily in small, grotesque portions, each bite a reminder of her own suffering. As days turned into weeks, Victor's torment continued, his hunger for pain and despair driving him to new heights of sadistic cruelty. He cut away pieces of Emily's limbs, her body a canvas of pain and agony. When he ran out of flesh, he began to cut away her internal organs, each slice a new source of torment, each breath a struggle for survival. Emily's once vibrant eyes were now dull and lifeless, her screams reduced to weak, pitiful whimpers. Her body was a mass of pain and terror, her mind a fractured reflection of the nightmare that had consumed her. Victor watched with cold detachment, his eyes fixed on her suffering, his heart devoid of any trace of humanity. "Don't worry, Emily," he said, his voice a twisted mockery of kindness. "You're going to be here for a long time. I have so many more plans for you." Chapter 5. The cycle continues. When Emily finally succumbed to her injuries, her body a lifeless shell of pain and despair, Victor's hunger was not yet sated. He cleaned the cellar, his eyes fixed on the darkness that lay beyond his home, his mind already turning to his next victim. He returned to the world of online dating, his charm and charisma a mask for his true nature, his promises of adventure and excitement luring new women to his home. It was on another chat site that he found his next victim, a young woman named Jessica. Her profile was filled with pictures of her smiling, her eyes bright with the promise of youth and innocence. Victor's heart quickened with anticipation as he crafted his message, his words a perfect blend of charm and deceit. Jessica, intrigued and excited, agreed to meet him, her heart racing with the thrill of the unknown. As she drove through the winding roads to his home, Jessica felt a growing sense of unease, her instincts screaming at her to turn back. But she pushed her fear aside, her desire for adventure and the unknown overpowering her caution. When she arrived, Victor greeted her with a warm smile, his eyes reflecting the darkness that lay hidden beneath his facade. He welcomed her into his home, offering her a drink and a tour of the house. Jessica, trusting and unsuspecting, followed him, her senses dulled by the warmth of his hospitality and the allure of the unknown. Chapter 6. The Eternal Descent. Jessica's fate was sealed the moment she entered Victor's home. The cellar, with its dark, oppressive silence, was her prison, the place where her nightmare would unfold. Victor, his eyes gleaming with sadistic delight, began his gruesome work, each slice of his knife a new source of pain and despair. The darkness of his soul consumed him, his every action driven by an insatiable hunger for suffering and torment. As Jessica's screams filled the air, her body a canvas of agony and pain, Victor's twisted satisfaction grew. He cut away pieces of her flesh, each slice a new source of torment, each breath a struggle for survival. When he had exhausted her limbs, he began to cut away her internal organs, his eyes fixed on her with a cold, unfeeling gaze. The cycle continued, each new victim a new source of pain and despair, each night a new chapter in Victor's unending nightmare. The house, once a place of solitude and silence, was now a dark, twisted haven for his sadistic desires. The land around it, once peaceful and serene, was now tainted with the horror that Victor had unleashed upon the world. And so, the darkness of Victor Stryker's soul consumed all who entered his home, his torment and cruelty a testament to the unending abyss that lay within him. The village of Sulphur, once a place of quiet solitude, was now a silent tomb, the last echoes of humanity's existence swallowed by the darkness that Victor had unleashed. The house, with its dry cellar and sinister aura, stood as a monument to the horrors that lay within, a chilling reminder of the darkness that had consumed Victor and his victims.